Hello everybody, it's Brennan here, and I am coming at you with a video about friendship breakups. Yes, and I have my sage here because, I always want these videos to illuminate the highest level of love and light, and I always want anything that I'm talking about to serve someone who needs to hear this message, just clearing of any discordant vibrations that do not serve us here. So may this all be lots of love and light. And yeah, so friendship breakups. I feel like this is such an underrated theme. I feel like we talk a lot about romantic relationships, but we don't often talk about friendship breakups. And I am no stranger to them. I've had my fair share of friendship transitions, kind of still in the shedding, clearing process. And I figured other people and friends in my space or acquaintances have talked about this to me a lot. And so I was like, oh, maybe this is a topic that needs to be kind of brought to the surface. So I wanted to do just a video about how do we transition through these new chapters. They can be incredibly devastating, incredibly confusing, overwhelming, and honestly, it can open up such a can of worms. But something that I found is that through all of that devastation, you can really start to address parts of yourself that you weren't willing to sit with. But I'm going to give us a couple of steps, a couple of just anecdotes around how I've navigated through friendship transitions. So first things first, like anything else, it's incredibly important to just feel it. Feel the confusion, feel the betrayal, feel the hurt. And I think allow yourself time to really psychoanalyze if you need to. Like if you need to write it in your journal and just kind of like allow yourself to purge. Like just write out everything that is confusing you or everything that's giving you kind of grief in that way. So for me, I'm big with I'm pretty self-aware with my psyche because I've done a lot of just inner work. I know my inner woundings. I know my traumas, my childhood wounding, so I immediately know what's being triggered. So specifically with my friendship breakups, I had a lot of triggers around abandonment. I already had an abandonment wound, and so the way that this happened, it kind of reignited that. So I was left feeling in that very victimized state, which is necessary. It's okay. I think there's an intelligence to anything that wants to come through. So first things first, psychoanalyze away. This is my opinion. Write it down. If you have safe containers, like safe friends that you can have these conversations with, definitely go and talk to them if they can hold the space for you. Definitely, they're not your therapists. I completely understand that. We don't want to trauma dump. But if you are both consenting and you can say, hey, can you hold me in this? And just blah, blah, blah. Allow yourself to really just articulate what's moving through you. Express your rage. I think that anger in its purest form, meaning that you're not projecting it onto somebody and you're not activating harm onto another person, is incredibly beautiful. So if your anger, for me, it's stomping or shaking my body or just feeling that anger. I love to tap. EMFT is really important. So again, expressing whatever needs to be known, let it be known. If you feel rage or betrayal, just cry it out, write it out, but give yourself boundaries. So don't continue to perpetuate this every single day, but give yourself some solid, healthy boundaries as to say hey, I'm gonna cry this out. Okay, so my next step is to I'm all about radical accountability, but with also radical compassion. So it's basically sitting at the seat of owning where you could have showed up better too. It takes two people in any relationship. So it's not enough to just point the finger and just say wow, how could they do that? Sure, they might have done things that were not maybe the way you would have done them, but also what role did you play? So you can also just acknowledge I could have showed up better in that way, or now I'm learning to ask for consent before I give advice, or ask. For me, I ask my friends, do you need a listener here, or do you need me to give some feedback? What are you open to receiving? Definitely having dialogue of consent. And you can just sit in the seat of just being the observer of what went on in the relationship. And again, just honor the part that you played. We all are works in progress, and we're trying to grow and get better. So there's no use in shaming yourself. But just really establish, like, okay, I was going through this at that time, so I can see how maybe I wasn't showing up as my best self, or, anything. Just trying to really like be a compassionate witness with how you could have maybe showed up better in the relationship. And that's all beautiful, because we're all here to learn lessons and we're all here to do better. So now you can apply that to your next relationship. So boundaries are hard just because, and I'm still getting used to this, when you set boundaries, you allow yourself to be prey to other people thinking you're the villain. Yeah. And something that is really tricky, and I'm also getting comfortable in, is other people's perceptions of me when I don't have a chance to prove them wrong. So basically, when you have a friendship breakup or something, you are at the liberty of somebody thinking X about you. Oh, they're this. And who knows what stories they could be telling anyone about you. They could be saying you're a bad person, you were a horrible friend, and you know in your spirit that you showed up the best that you possibly could. But you are not in control of their narratives. You are not in control of their narratives. And so when you set a boundary, you have to figure out what that is for you. So for me, like, if I've tried multiple times to sort of invite conversations, and because I have abandonment triggers, I do have to now sever myself from someone. So it does look like, just separating myself, no communication in that way, no longer making myself available. So what that might look like for you, it's like, if you do need to go ahead and unfollow them on Instagram, then do that. If you do need to, remove their number, if you do need to block, all of that is welcome, because at that point you need to protect sort of your bubble, and they're not in your field anymore. So sometimes they don't need to be in your virtual field. It's also just like letting it sort of fizzle. It's okay, and again, you're always sending them love. Boundaries also mean that you don't need to go stalking them and seeing what they're doing. Have boundaries with yourself. And again, with boundaries, with a separation, you might get narratives out there that may not necessarily be true for you. And so just getting used to that and settling into that possibility that people might have an entirely different idea about who you are as a person. And that's not really your business. You just have to kind of come back to the seat of self-love and know your truth and know your heart, and that you just doing the best that you possibly could. And sometimes you just have to anchor into that, because other people may not do it for you. The next part to this is hard, but definitely important, to just accept the current reality that this person is no longer in your life the way that they once were. They're not in your field anymore. And that goes with a lot of compassion. If you're dealing with that, I see you, I feel you, I know how that feels in your spirit. It's kind of shocking, and you're kind of like still grasping and in disbelief that this is your reality. But at some point, you have to just breathe into the new reality and sort of lean into the universal law of the law of detachment, which means that like we should never be attached to any specifically material items, but basically no one is our property. Everyone's on their own soul journeys, and every person that we meet, whether it's a friend and it's platonic, or romantic partner, or even family, these are all souls that are in our path and in our space to teach us lessons. And for whatever reason, you and that friend that you once had, you're not meant to share that space anymore. And I know that conceptually that makes sense, but I know it's easier said than done. So I'm holding space for you in my heart if you're dealing with that. I know that pain, but the more that you can remind yourself of you are on your journey and they are on their journey, and to keep just moving forward. And while you do this, you can still always send them love. Send them love. Even though you may not be connected in the physical form, you can still just shower them with love and still want the best for them, because that really is freeing yourself up. If there's any animosity or malice or uncomfortable feelings, that doesn't serve you. And, once upon a time, this was your friend. This was your good friend, your best friend. And so you can revel in the fact that you shared beautiful moments. At one point, love did exist between you. So how much gratitude can you bring to the moments that were in their purest expression and purest form? Because if that was the ceiling of your relationship, and that's about as high as it was meant to go, then that's kind of life. And so trying to metabolize all of that. And I know, again, it's easier said than done, but just again, coming back into knowing you're on your journey and they're on their journey, celebrating the fact that you did share beautiful moments together, sharing the fact that they did witness you at one part of your journey. They know one version of you that maybe doesn't even exist anymore because you've evolved, but just try to just breathe into gratitude for the genuine positive moments that you did have together, because they are part of who you are today, good or bad. So that's another way to sort of begin the sort of releasing stage. Now, the next part is my favorite part, which is, now what is the energy I want to bring into my space? Chances are, if you guys have sort of separated from a past friend, there were things that were not maybe vibrating. You weren't vibrating at the same speed, you weren't at the same cadence. And so now it's like, okay, when you sort of clear the field, and now you're sort of like back being this like in this neutral state, you can now attract what you want. So for me, what's really important is in friendship is like beautiful communication. Like, let us not be afraid to share what's uncomfortable, but in a safe container. So allowing for us to have these moments of communication where we can say, hey, that really hurt me. Or how can I support you better as a friend? Is there anything I need to do? Or I really honor and appreciate people that are able to not see sort of a conflict as confrontation. Conflict does not mean confrontation. It just means, hey, you're in your own flow and I'm in mine. So what can we do to meet in the middle? And how can we both get our needs met in this friendship? Also, just big on safety. I just want friends that feel not only safe around me, but I feel safe around them, that they see my growth and my shine as beautiful and bright and loving, and they actually cheer me on because they know my history, and the fact that I can be confident is a gift, considering some of the moments in my life that could have made me anything but feel confident. I want them to know my heart and my origin story as to the mechanics of me, so that they cheer me on. They know my heart, they know my truth. They give me the benefit of the doubt. Within giving me the benefit of the doubt, they still can hold me beautifully accountable for my actions. And I do that for them as well. I'm big on community. I'm big on being able to, maybe we get there in different ways, but our objective and our goalpost is the same. So I meditate. I'm big with kind of doing the inner work so I don't then project it onto someone. I'm big with my spiritual practice. These are things that help me feel nourished and remind me of who I am. My friends don't have to do that either the same way, but they have their own system. So they're curious in knowing their inner workings, knowing how to show up better, knowing how to massage into some of their traumas, so then we don't just continue to have a project fest on each other. That's no good. Those things are deeply important to me. What else is important? Also just honesty and existing together but not having to talk. That's a big one. So whatever that is for you, take this time with this person's absence to now call in the ways you want to be supported in your friendships now. Call in the way that you want to be seen. Call in the ways that you want to be supported. And last but not least, it always comes from a place of self-love. Always going back to how your internal template creates the external template. So the more respect and devotion you can show and water within yourself, the more that's always going to be reflected in your friendships, in your romantic relationships, in your familial relationships. It's important to have self-love. Okay, so that's all I've got. Again, I'm honoring you if you're dealing with friendship transitions. I know it's not easy. Please leave me some comments in the chat about how you're navigating through those uncharted waters of... And again, I'm sending you so much love. Stay in your truth.